And a lot of my classes have what they call like phone jail.
Cell phone holders, so we just put them up there for class a lot of the times.
I would say cell phones have helped me in my school career because it's always just an access to wherever I need to be. Like,
there's also times where maybe I'm not wanting to be as invested in the class, so that's where I pull it out.
Everyone has an opinion. So what's yours? Today on MOMCAST, the good, the bad, the ban on cell phones in schools. Some kids in the Valley have them already. Some don't. You're gonna hear both of their perspectives, parents too, right now on MOMCAST. Welcome to MOMCAST. I'm your host, Emma Jade. Our first official episode on TV. Just a little introduction for you. I'm Emma. I've worked at 12 News for nearly 15 years now, but after having multiple children very close together, 4 in 5 years, I knew I needed to focus at home. But I didn't want that to mean I couldn't still pursue this career that I have loved. So I created MOMCAST from my living room with my kids right at my feet, sometimes joining me right on my lap. And it was a news show that informed my fellow busy parents about what was happening in the world in a way that made sense for the everyday mom. Well, from social media to YouTube to 12 Plus, our streaming service, and now right here on your TV. It has been a dream creating this show alongside you, and I am thrilled to now have a spot every single week where you and I, we get to meet up and discuss the biggest issues families, kids, moms, our community are facing. Today, it's about the dang cell phone. Yes, there are good things, believe me, about that phone and having your kids connected to it. We can reach them if we need to. In emergencies, they've got a quick way of getting into contact with us. We can track where they are. But let's face it, the cons far outweigh the pros. Studies show that excessive cell phone use is directly associated to higher levels of depression in our kids, to anxiety, to cyberbullying, eating disorders, sleep deprivation. It's why State Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Horne plans to support a new round of legislation this next session, banning student cell phone use in Arizona classrooms.
It's become the heroin of our time, and we really have to take strong action against it.
So what exactly does this look like? Let's break it down for you. The new bill that Horne plans to support this next session would require every school district in Arizona to develop some sort of rule that limits cell phone use during the day. But really, it would be up to the individual district on what exactly this would look like and how they would enforce it. But this new bill would allow for exceptions. If there was an emergency, kids could pull out their phones. There would also be exceptions for if the teacher wanted the students to pull out their phones for educational purposes. So a similar bill actually failed earlier this year. It passed the Arizona House, it passed the Senate, but it was vetoed by Governor Katie Hobbs, who stated the bill establishes an unnecessary mandate for an issue schools are already addressing. And yes, some school districts already have restrictions in place. Mesa, the largest in the entire state, started a ban this school year. Gilbert, Apache Junction, Bullhead City, Scottsdale Unified, Tolleson, that's just to name a few, but no statewide ban yet. 7 states in the U.S. have passed statewide policies restricting cell phones in schools. Florida, Indiana, Louisiana, Minnesota, Ohio, South Carolina, and Virginia. But this legislative session, several more states, including California, Texas, Utah, Washington, and yes, Arizona, have some sort of bill that will be introduced tackling cell phones in schools. So why do we care? Why is this such a big issue? Honestly, because it's just hurting our kids. The resurgence of cell phone bans follows 2 advisories from the U.S. Surgeon General on the youth mental health crisis and the harmful impacts of social media use.
We see rates of depression and anxiety and suicide and loneliness going up among young people. And I'm concerned that social media is an important driver of that youth mental health crisis. This is the defining public health issue of our time.
In 2023, a survey of kids and teens found that more than half spend at least 4 hours of their day on social media. That's at least 4 hours. And we know, thanks to countless studies and research, that social media use is associated with higher rates of anxiety, higher rates of depression, along with higher rates of exposure to harmful content. Social media addiction, it's real, and it affects our sleep, our eating habits, neurological development. I'm not just talking kids here, I'm talking parents, everyone. But it is why child and family therapist, a regular here on MOMCAST, Amy Angert, is all for cell phone bans in our schools.
Absolutely. It makes 100% to have the ban. And I don't really hear any solid arguments against having the ban. I don't really know what leg you have to stand on if you're saying, oh, no, my kid needs more of their phone. It makes zero sense. So I am for sure in the camp that there is not any strong argument that makes any sense that says, no, our kids do need their phones in the schools. I'm for sure in the overwhelming camp of no, thank you, it's not necessary. From an academic standpoint, we know that teachers are talking about distractions in class. And when you have the input of a phone, no human being can match the interest level of fast changing screens, colors, constant input. Nobody can compete with that. Not our teachers, for sure. So we know that it adds to distractions. We know that it takes kids multitudes longer to complete the work they need to do when they are constantly checking a phone, even having notifications turned on. If you're not picking up the phone, it cuts that attention. So from an academic standpoint, it's a no-brainer. But from a mental health standpoint, we're seeing kids in schools who are more anxious, more depressed, and less connected. And those things are not mutually exclusive. There is a reason that we are seeing kids feel less connected and seeing spikes in anxiety and depression. And phones are not the whole story, but they are a large part of that story, absolutely.
We know it can't just be the experts telling us what they think. It has to start at home. It's got to start with mom and dad and kids on board. So what do the kids think?
Having the phone around in the class is a little different. It's always kind of been don't go on it, but now it's officially like don't even have it near you. So I think that's the biggest change.
Yeah, so usually you just have them beginning of class and then like passing periods and stuff. And then when you get in class, a lot of teachers like have cell phone holders. So we just put them up there for class a lot of the times.
From the West Valley to the East, we got two sides of Arizona that have two different sets of rules in place when it comes to their phones and the classroom. Next on MOMCAST, hear from the kids, the teens who this ban actually affects.
And do you think this is a good change? What are your thoughts?
Welcome back to MOMCAST. I'm Emma Jade, and as we mentioned, right now in Arizona, there is no statewide ban on cell phones in schools. But many districts are taking matters into their own hands. Mesa Public Schools, the largest school district in our state, restricting cell phone use this school year. I was actually out at Mountain View High School just a few days ago. Here's what kids think about this pretty big change.
Cell phones not allowed at school. How's it going so far?
It's good. I think it's just good to remember that there's a time and place for it. So just making sure that you're supposed to be using them for what they're supposed to be used for.
What's different about this year than last when it comes to cell phones?
I think this year, for sure, teachers are being a lot more strict about cell phones. And a lot of my classes have what they call like phone jail, or it's like a pouch in our seat behind us, or it's like a pencil box taped to the table, or some teachers are just like, don't let me see if I mention it once, warning, twice, it's going to the office. And no one wants to deal with that, so.
Big change this year with the cell phone ban. What does it look like for you?
Mainly just like not having the phone around in the class is a little different. It's always kind of been don't go on it, but now it's officially like don't even have it near you. So I think that's the biggest change.
What was it like making that change? I mean, that's a big thing. Again, as an adult, that would be hard to like not look at it. But as a kid, you're so used to having it out. How did that transition go for you?
It's different. It hasn't been too bad just because like it helps you out in school. Like it's definitely going to keep me on task, but it's different not like even just having it there to check the time or check messages. Like that's different, and so you kind of got to get used to that, but it's good for the work.
Was it hard to make this adjustment because it is new for this year? What did that look like?
I think kids our age are really comfortable just having it all the time, no matter what. When it comes to mine, just checking it. Even when there's no notifications, just checking it and opening your phone. So I think it's definitely a transition to get rid of that like habit. But I think it's been great in schools, and with teachers, it's just about respect and knowing when the right time is to pull it out and just to make the best out of your learning environment.
Tell me what the protocol is now. If you have your phone and you're at school, what do you have to do?
Away, they say out of sight, out of mind. So not anywhere in sight, so you're not using it and you're paying attention in your classes.
Are you allowed just to leave it in your backpack, or do you have to put it up on the wall? How does it work?
Yeah, they've just been having us leave them in our backpacks, yeah.
What do you hear from other kids your age? Is everyone kind of on board, or is it just like we have to do this?
It's definitely hard. Like, people want to be able to have their phone, be able to go on stuff. It makes the time go by quicker, but I also feel like they're enjoying it, getting their classes done and like staying on task. Like, that's definitely helping. And so I don't think it's like a huge hate on it, but it's definitely hard.
What do you think about cell phones? Like, is it a positive thing in your life, or is it something that you try and stay away from too? I know you're busy because you've got football, you've got school. So what is it for you?
I mean, it's a positive tool when I make it positive, but there's definitely ways I can like scroll and kind of lose track of time, and like being busy, that's gonna kill me. So I kind of got to be smart with that stuff, and so I try to stay on top of it.
Have you noticed any difference, like for you personally, or maybe friends, not having it next to you during school?
Yeah, I've noticed a difference based around productivity, and I've realized that when I'm not on it, I can be more productive, and then I'll just have time at home to do it instead of time at home to do my homework that I'm not doing in class.
And do you think this is a good change? What are your thoughts?
I do think within the freshmen coming in, they don't really know how to handle it and regulate it like by themselves. I know in my senior classes, it's not that big of an issue, but I have seen it in other classes, and I think that it's great for the whole like learning environment. And when no one's on their phone and just one person has it out, you kind of get singled out. So it's kind of just, I think it's better for everyone.
On the other side of the valley, Liberty High School in Peoria, they don't have a cell phone ban. So how are kids there handling it?
Brady, if there was a statewide ban on cell phones in the classroom, what would you think?
I would take it as a little bit of a surprise, honestly, because cell phones are pretty important in the classroom for doing research. We do a lot of things on our cell phones. There's a lot of websites that we use in the classroom. So I think it would come as a surprise to most students.
You guys do not have a ban here at Liberty. Is it really just up to the student, or is it up to the teacher? How does it work?
So it does depend on the classroom and on the teacher. Most classrooms do have little cell phone cubbies that we put them in when we walk into class. So I mean, some students like that, some students don't, but most teachers are pretty flexible. Like, if you need to go call a parent, need to go text a parent, or if you need it for class, they're pretty much open to letting you go get that cell phone for a little bit.
Thoughts, cell phone, what do you think?
I mean, I personally like having cell phone at school. There's points that I think it's good to put them up, like during class, so you can focus better. But just overall, I think it's good to have them at school, just to communicate with your parents if you need them or anything like that.
How do you think about cell phones in general? Like, do you feel like they add to your life? Do they detract from your life? Because parents all have our own opinions, but what do you think?
I preferably like it because I like to take pictures and have lots of memories I can look back on, and that's probably my favorite thing. And I like to look at like things people are doing like on social media, and it just is really fun.
So in your opinion, do you think cell phones are a problem in school?
I don't think cell phones are a problem. I mean, there's obviously a point where you can get carried away with that cell phone in class. Like, we do need to be focused on our curriculum and taking bigger steps, but there is a point where we do need the cell phones in class, whether it's communication or research.
If there was like a statewide no cell phones in schools, how would you react to that?
I mean, I personally wouldn't like it because there's a lot of things that you can use it for in school too. But yeah, that's just me.
I probably wouldn't like it just because I like to connect with people too. Like, I like to talk to people, connect, see what everyone's doing. So yeah.
You're super involved in school. You're an athlete. Do you think cell phones have hindered or helped you in your high school career?
I would say cell phones have helped me in my school career because it's always just an access to wherever I need to be. Like, the way that the internet is today, I can be anywhere at any point, anytime. It does take me a little bit away from where my feet are sometimes, but being able to be away from my feet helps me get that research done, helps me be where I need to be.
We hear from the kids. I want to hear from you. So I threw this out on our MOMCAST Instagram page, asking what you think. 86% of MOMCAST followers agree there should be a cell phone ban at school. 14% say no. And it's really important to note here, this new bill in Arizona would make exceptions for emergencies, meaning that your child would have access to their phone if something were to happen. MOMCAST contributor, child and family therapist Amy Angert, she is a fierce proponent of banning cell phones in schools.
Get squeaky. Get squeaky with your school. Send the emails. Express to your teachers. Support them support them following through on consequences for having phones out in class.
So what does the perfect relationship for a teen and their cell phone actually look like?
That's such a good question. It can look like so many things, but I think what it looks like is...
We discuss next on MOMCAST. Welcome back to MOMCAST. I'm Emma Jade, MOMCAST contributor, child and family therapist Amy Angert. So Amy, what is your best advice to parents whose school does not have a cell phone ban in place? What kinds of things should they be talking to their kids about to avoid those high levels of depression, the high levels of anxiety?
Many things, and some of it is parents having conversations with your kids. Some of it is parents modeling for their kids, and some of it is parents putting the restrictions in place. So I'm going to give a little bit of a long answer. So if we're having conversations with our kids, letting our kids understand, hey, your phone doesn't need to be on you at all times. So it doesn't need to live in your pocket. It doesn't need to live in every room you go to. Have a place for it. And as parents, let's model this. Put your phone down and live life away from your phone. And then when you need it, go to your phone. Turning off kids' notifications on phones, making sure they go in so that they are not getting a banner on their phone every time anything happens in any of the apps that they're on, making sure those are on. On a parent level, parents should have screen time effects in place, parental controls, whether it's internal to the phone or an outside app. Parents should have parental controls in place that really are cutting that off during school time hours so that you really don't have access to it. So turning off the apps, turning off the social, whatever it is, and kids should not be having social media until they are older teens anyway. And this might shock you, but I have been a bit squeaky about sending emails, forwarding articles about cell phone bans, saying like, hey, let's do this. I love this. Let's do it. So our school did finally put in, it's not a full cell phone ban, but it's no phones out in class, and they're actually enforcing it. There's always been kind of a soft policy around it, but it's actually being enforced now. Teachers are on board. Teachers are expected to toe the line. So back to school night rolls around, the principal's giving his message, and he but after a little introduction, he said, so you probably saw the letter that went around, and we're cracking down on cell phones. We're not doing a full ban, but we are cracking down. We want them away in the classroom. And I am sitting there doing like yippee inside. But I knew, I'm like, I've been squeaky about this. Other parents started clapping, and it started this whole round of applause in the gym. And he was actually he seemed a little surprised. He was a little bit worried about how this would be received by parents. And I think for him to see that support, that parents are behind it. We want phones away. We want our kids to be in school and be in school. He genuinely was a little surprised at that reaction and grateful for it. And we're like, keep going, do more, right? Because they're in backpacks, they can't be out in the classroom. But I'm like, put them away, ban them completely in passing periods, at lunchtime, at recess.
You have been a therapist for a very long time, and it's interesting because I feel like you have seen what life was like for kids before cell phones, and now cell phones are such a big part of their lives. How different of a time is it to be a kid right now?
It actually makes me sad to say it, right? I mean, the reality of it is very sad, because even if you've got a kid who is like, hey, I can like take or leave my cell phone, I would rather be doing these things. When you see these groups of kids together, we've all been in this situation, whether it's a restaurant or a park or just sitting out in front of the school. It used to be when you were in high school, when I was in high school, you're floating between different groups of people. You're talking, people are messing around and interacting socially, physically. People are just engaging. And now, even just in a car ride, right? It's heads down in the phones. You are seeing the tops of people's heads. And sometimes kids might argue, but we're looking at funny things together, or we're sending snaps together. But it is a qualitative difference that is making for huge consequences. And I really feel for our kids. I wish we could put the whole genie back in the bottle.
The only pushback I got from people online who did not want a cell phone ban were those parents who were scared of things like a school shooting, not being able to contact them in case of an emergency. What do you say to those people?
I was in a situation, I think it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago when our school had to go in lockdown because there was a threat called in, and it was terrifying. And I can say, as a mom, I was so happy to be able to be in touch with my student to know, okay, he's okay. He's okay right now. It was terrifying. And I think that that's a question that schools will have to answer. But even if you ban cell phones, if a child has a cell phone in their bag, but it is turned off and they're not allowed to have it, they would still have quick access to that.
Amy, parents are so overwhelmed right now. Things cost more than ever. Lots of homes have two parents working. So tackling this huge phone problem feels like way too much, especially if we feel like we're behind the curve. So I'm just gonna let them do what their friends are doing, and they're just gonna have to figure it out.
It's not that that phone is inherently bad and you should never have it. It's that we have gotten so casual in the boundaries we set around it as parents, as kids, as adult users of the phone, whatever. So I like to have certain norms in place that to me are like the non-negotiables. Biggie for me, cell phones do not spend the night in the room. We need to protect kids' sleep, because if we're talking about technology affecting mental health, the other fastest way to get a mental health decline in a child, in an adult as well, is sleep deprivation. And we cannot take for granted that, well, no, my child uses it just for the alarm or whatever. It is too tempting. We just need to make sure that phones are out of the rooms. Also, do not assume that when you give your child a phone, you give your child everything that comes along with it. You need to think about that first phone that your child gets should be considered like a phone with training wheels. So it's got bare bone capabilities. You can text, you can call, maybe it's photos, music, but we're starting small. We're not going to just pass everything on to them and be like, hope they're responsible. I hope this goes well. We cannot cross our fingers and hope, because these phones have too much pull. They have been developed, created, all of the apps on them are created to keep you in. And the people who developed them are really good at what they do.
So what does a healthy relationship for a kid with a phone actually look like?
Ooh, that's such a good question. It can look like so many things, but I think what it looks like is that the phone is not the go-to when I'm bored, that the phone is being used. Like, I think about, okay, I would pick time with my friends, time with my family over time on my phone. And absolutely, we all need our downtime, right? Like, whether it was in the 80s and it's like, I just need to turn on a show for 30 minutes, or I need to take a walk, but really keeping that balance of they're getting physical activity. And great bonus if that physical activity also comes with friends, whether it's bike riding or at the park or something like that, but that the phone is really secondary to these other normal, developmental, very important experiences that they're having, that a phone does not become the primary, that a phone is kind of like an afterthought.
Cannot thank you enough for your input, Amy, and to you watching. Thank you for being part of this conversation, something I hope that we continue to work through together. We'll see you next week, Thursday at 2:30, right here on 12 News. I'm Emma Jade. Thanks for watching MOMCAST.